Good afternoon. My name is Vincent Fort. I serve the 39th District, City of Atlanta. Like many Atlantans, I have been disturbed by the news coming out of City Hall. We now know that there are at least 3 active investigations and prosecutions by the U.S. Attorney and the Fulton County District Attorney, a former executive at the Atlanta Workforce Development, a former employee at the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, has pled guilty to federal charges and is now a cooperating witness. A group of employees in the Watershed Department were indicted last week by the Fulton County District Attorney on charges of theft from the city. 2 major city contractors have pled guilty in the last month to federal bribery charges and are assisting federal authorities. One of those witnesses was apparently the subject of intimidation attempts. And we learned just last week that the FBI raided the city's procurement department, seizing the computer of the director. These are extraordinary times, and not in a good way for our city, and these times requires extraordinary measures. That's why I'm announcing the introduction of legislation to make changes to Atlanta City Charter to increase the accountability and openness of City Hall. The legislation will contain, first, a strong, independent city inspector general. The legislation will create a strong, independent inspector general, and we will do everything we can to insulate the job from political pressure and meddling. The candidate for the job will be recommended to the mayor and city council by a group of superior and state court judges. The IG will serve for a set term of 6 years and can only be removed for cause by a supermajority of the city council. The IG will have the power to investigate the financial management and contracting at city agencies. The office will now have the power to investigate the effectiveness of city programs and recommend changes to those programs. The IG will be able to take complaints from the public and city employees, including whistleblowers, and to thoroughly investigate those allegations. The Inspector General will also have the power to investigate city employees' compliance with Georgia's open records laws, open records and open meetings laws. If citizens are wrongfully denied access to city records or city meetings, the Inspector General will have the power to investigate, compel compliance, and refer cases of willful violations to the Attorney General, District Attorney, or Solicitor for prosecution. One example, under the state open records law, the city should have made any information stored electronically that was printed out in the hundreds of boxes available electronically. If this IG was in place, the office could have compelled the city to produce the information electronically rather than in cumbersome paper form. I just want to make clear, the law as it exists now required the city to have presented those documents in electronic form. 2, we will allow no secret settlements. Issues surrounding complaints about the fairness of the city contracting process have often been resolved via secret settlements, paying complainants to go away while keeping potential misconduct by city officials secret. This charter change will prohibit those secret settlements. If the city is forced to pay out money due to violating bid rules, the taxpayers need to know that. And I want to say, because I know there's some debate about this issue, but the fact when Miguel Southwell entered into that private secret settlement, what made it private and secret more than anything else is that he can't talk about it after the fact. Miguel Southwell should have been able to talk to the public, the media, and explain what it was that he was concerned about. He said that there were improper things going on with contracting at the airport. If there were, the media and the public should have been able to ask him, talk to him about it if he saw fit. 3, and this is something that goes back to my days as a neighborhood leader long before I got elected, We would require evening meetings of city council. The Atlanta Public Schools does it already. City council now conducts almost all of its business during business hours, Monday through Friday. By making the city council meet in the evening, residents who have to work during the day will be able to participate in meetings with more regularity. That's the package. I believe, as I've said often, that City Hall has lost its way. What has been allowed to happen is a atmosphere at City Hall that makes it rife for corruption, resulting in just that, a culture of corruption. I'm standing here today believing that the citizens of the city of Atlanta deserve better. I know they deserve better. There's more to come, I'm sure, in this scandal, but it's not too early to start contemplating and acting on the need for stronger ethics legislation in the state capitol, stronger ethics provisions in the charter of the city of Atlanta. I'll take questions at this point, if there are any. Yes.
He's been watching the coverage and been involved in your observations.
Yes, sir.
It seems as though the feds have broadened this investigation fairly significantly beyond these contractors. I mean, where do you see this going? I mean, do you feel as though this may go all the way to the top?
The investigations. I cannot say whether it will go all the way up to the top. What I will say is I think apparently it is broader and deeper and wider than I first thought it would be. I just think that there's an atmosphere at City Hall that has been created over the last 7.5 years, and that makes people think that they can enrich themselves and enrich themselves at the expense of citizens. I look upon this situation as this isn't theoretical. This is money that could be used to help develop neighborhoods that are in decline in Atlanta. And for people to enrich themselves, they enrich it at the expense of our communities, our neighborhoods, and our children that need so much. But how far it goes up, I don't know. But I will say this: let the chips fall where they may. Let's hold people accountable, and let's clean up City Hall.
This is state legislation. For
Yeah.
those who don't understand, those of my viewers who may not understand the process,
Yeah.
what authority does the state have to
Okay.
legislate?
Yeah.
What happens to the city?
The state of Georgia authorizes the city's charter. It passes the city's charter, the rules by which the city has to operate, the broad rules. Therefore, in order to make changes to that charter, the state has to sign off on them. So this is considered to be local legislation, and it is not encumbered, by the way, by the rules of crossover. Local legislation can move at any time.
So, I mean, did you anticipate any pushback? I mean, certainly you anticipate some pushback from this.
I welcome any input, but I challenge anyone. I challenge anyone at this point in time to come forward and say this isn't a good idea. We don't need to do this. I mean, there is a bad apples approach to this. That there's just a few bad apples, and there's almost an apologetic attitude toward what's happening at City Hall. That's the wrong attitude. We need to approach this in the most serious manner possible. Obviously, for whatever checks and balances there are down the street, one block, whatever checks and balances they haven't been enough. The city council has been reduced to a nod squad. They have not given the oversight that the public ought to expect. We've got to put in some some infrastructure so that City Hall can take care of its own business, and that's what this is about. So I challenge anyone. I, I, I look forward to a public debate on this at any time, any place of any sort. Um, this is a stain on the city of Atlanta. What's happening?
When would this take effect, if it passes this session?
Uh, the changes probably July 1st. Probably July 1st. And let me just be clear: these pieces of legislation are in the drafting stage. One has been advertised already. Local legislation has to be advertised first, and the legislation on evening meetings has already been. The advertisement has already been published, and that's ready to go. And that'll be ready to go in the committee shortly. The IG, the Inspector General legislation, is in the process of being drafted. That's a little bit more complex legislation, but I expect that legislation to be finished shortly so that it could run the regular course of legislation. That legislation follows in the General Assembly.
Do you see it coming through in this session, or is it going to be possibly the next session before?
It is. It is. This is so critical at this point. I don't think the citizens of Atlanta are going to want to wait until 2018, 2019. Let's do our job now. So it is my hope, it is my intent to push this as hard as I can.
Any co-sponsors at this point?
No. Local legislation is signed off on by members of the City of Atlanta delegation, and I've been talking to my colleagues about it. At some point in time, I'm going to ask them for their signatures on the legislation, and we'll know then who's for it and who's not for it. Anything else? I just have one other thing I want to say. There's a sentiment that City Hall has all the, like I said, stops in place, all the checks and balances in place. And that is an approach you can take, that, we've got everything that we need in place. I would say to anybody who believes that is to look at the mess we have at City Hall. Defending the status quo as far as ethics is concerned in the city of Atlanta is not a viable option. So, I assume that the ethics board, the internal auditor, all those folk are well intentioned, but something has gone wrong, seriously gone wrong. And then the only other thing I want to mention is this. It's unfortunate that some people are using this morass as a way to attack the Minority Business Enterprise Program at the City of Atlanta. That would be the wrong thing to do. Strengthening the ethics process at City Hall protects the Minority Business Enterprise Program. I've spent a lot of time up here in the state capitol in the last couple of years trying to open up the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. And so there's probably no set of ideas that I hold more precious than making sure that the state does its job in diversifying its business. And so protecting ethics helps protect the Minority Business Enterprise Program. And that is one of the reasons that I feel this is so urgent when I hear attacks from people who are anti diversity in business at City Hall, using this as an excuse to denigrate that historic legacy program. Thank you.